Now, let me say it again, Mr. President. I don't hate anybody. This is America. I sure don't hate the Congresswoman. She is entitled to her opinion, but I'm entitled to mine. And she can criticize my policy positions, but I'm entitled to criticize hers. And I'm here to tell you, Mr. President, in front of God and country, based on her policy positions that she's demanding, based on her policy positions that she is demanding that I just outlined, $1.5 trillion of pure, unadulterated spending porn. Based on that demand, based on her policy positions, the American people are looking at her and saying, this person has single-handedly put an end to dumb blonde jokes. Because that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Based on her policy positions, $1.5 trillion of this kind of spending porn, the American people are looking at the Congresswoman and saying, with respect, she must be bilingual. She must speak English and stupid. And that's why we're not agreeing to it. The shutdown melodrama continues. I love the smell of melodrama in the morning. It smells like the United States Senate. I said the other day that this shutdown is just further proof that human evolution is a slow process. This shutdown, what you're witnessing now, is just further proof of why it took human beings thousands of years to learn how to stand upright. This shutdown is bone deep, down to the marrow, stupid. Some shutdowns are based on policy. Some shutdowns are based on politics. Some shutdowns are based on a combination of both. This one is pure. It's pure as ivory snow. This shutdown is based on politics. Let me tell you what's going on. I believe in a two-party system, Mr. President. Why? Because two parties create competition. And competition makes all of us better. It does. The Democratic Party, the opposite of my party, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party is competing within itself right now. And there is a distinct wing of the Democratic Party that is winning that competition. If I wanted to use a pejorative expression, I would call it the loon wing of the party. The loon wing of the Democratic Party. Or you might call it the Bolshevik wing of the Democratic Party. I think a more accurate description is to call it the Socialist wing of the Democratic Party. I think that's fair. Now, I'm not saying that all of my Democratic friends are socialists. But there is clearly a wing of the Democratic Party that can only be described accurately as the socialist wing of the party. And that party is in ascendancy. That party is in control. Now, my friend Senator Schumer is the leader of the Democrats in the United States Senate. And he, of course, has instructed his colleagues to vote to shut down government. And Senator Schumer has been criticized for that. And I understand. I don't agree with him. I think he made a mistake. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the leader of this effort. I don't. I think Senator Schumer like many of his colleagues, would like to be loved by everybody in the party, and he would like to be loved by the socialist wing of his party. And I do think that's part of what is motivating this shutdown, and that's why I say it's all about politics. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the person in charge, because Senator Schumer is not the leader of the socialist wing of his party. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is. She's running the show. It was no accident the other day the Congresswoman let it slip. She said, if you really want to negotiate an end of this shutdown, come see me. Come see me. And I think any fair-minded person has to look right now and say that the two leading members, the quarterback, the two leading members of the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, the quarterback is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Now, her substitute is Senator Bernie Sanders. But I think it's the Congresswoman who's calling these shots. Now, Mr. President, I don't hate anybody. I've said that repeatedly, and I mean it. I like all of my colleagues. I look for grace wherever I can find it. When I say my prayers, I do. Every single time I ask God, don't let me hate, because it's hard sometimes. It's hard up here. But I do. I say, God, don't let me hate. And I certainly don't hate Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I want to make that very clear. She has the right to her opinion. She has the right to try to have the socialists take over the Democratic Party. That's the American way. Ironically, I think what she's doing is anti-American, but she has the right as an American to do it, so I don't hate her. But I judge her by her policy. She has her opinion and I have mine. And I have to judge her candidly by her policy. Here is what the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, led by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, has said to the American people and to the United States Congress and the Republicans in Congress. If you Republicans don't agree to make the federal government $1.5 trillion, not $1 million, not $1 billion, $1.5 trillion bigger, we're going to shut government down. Well, of course we said no. I'm not going to vote for that. My mother didn't raise a fool. And as I've said before, if she did, it was one of my brothers. I'm never going to vote for that. Now, where do I come up with this figure, $1.5 trillion? Well, the first thing that the socialists and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is asking us to do is to repeal the health care reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We just passed them. We just passed them. Here it is, Subtitle B, Health in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, we didn't cut Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill. In fact, under our bill, Medicaid is going to increase 2% a year over the next 10 years. Now, what we did by reforming Medicaid, which Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez wants us to reverse, we cut out the waste and the fraud. For example, we found out that there are, no kidding, I'm not just making this up, we found out that there are 2.8 million people on Medicaid who are double dipping in America. They're either signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and Mississippi, double dipping, or they're signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and they're signing up for the Obamacare subsidies. That's called cheating. Our bill would put an end to that. And it would save about $140 billion on 10 years. The socialist wing of the Democratic Party and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez want us to reverse that. The second thing we did in our health care reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill is to say you've got to stop lying when you apply for Medicaid. Under President Obama, we had virtually no eligibility checks. People could walk in and the Medicaid folks would say, how much do you make a year? And they could say $30,000 a year. And they'd say, okay, you qualify. Now, I trust people. I've said it before on this floor. I play cards with my friends all the time. They're friends. I cut the cards anyway. We have found, for example, just in Louisiana, we did a statistical sample of the people on Medicaid in Louisiana. Our auditors found 1,600 people on Medicaid making $100,000 a year or more. That's cheating. So our bill put an end to that. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and the Socialist wing of the Democratic Party want us to put it back. They want to let people cheat. What else are the Socialists asking for in this $1.5 trillion? Well, they're saying we don't want people who can work to work. We put a provision in our bill that the Congresswoman and the Socialist wing of her party want us to take out that says, look, if you're between the ages of 19 and 64 and you're able-bodied, we're not talking about a mother with a sick child in her arms, you're able-bodied, you're perfectly healthy, and you don't have any dependent kids at home, then if you qualify based on income, we'll give you Medicaid, but you have to work. You have to work 20 hours a week or go to school 20 hours a week or do community service 20 hours a week, because the free enterprise system, jobs, have done more to lift people out of poverty than all the social programs put together. That's what's called a work requirement. What's wrong with that? Those who can't work should work. Our welfare programs were meant to be bridges, not parking lots. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and the Socialist wing of her party want us to reverse all of that. What else do they want us to do? Well, they're upset at us over the Affordable Care Act. Now, let me tell you what all this is about with the Affordable Care Act. Under Obamacare, if you are a low-income American, you're entitled to Medicaid. If you are a middle-income American, you have a job, then chances are you get insurance through your employer. Most people do. But if you're in the middle, you make a little more money than the poverty level, but you can't get insurance through your employer, we provide what's called the Obamacare exchanges. So when we talk about the Obamacare subsidies, that's what we're talking about. It's about 24 million people. And it was meant for lower income people. Up until 2019, it was all for low income people. And then in 2019, without any Republican votes, President Obama said, look, we're in a pandemic. We're going to raise the limit. We're going to say there are no income limits on Obamacare paid for by the taxpayer. We've got 24 million people on Obamacare. When they raised the limits, you can make any amount of money and still get a subsidy. That added about 1.6 million people on Obamacare. Obamacare was meant for people who make from roughly $30,000 a year to $130,000 a year, families of four. Now, because President Biden raised the cap, we've got people making $600,000 a year, $150,000 a year, families making $200,000 a year, getting subsidies from the American taxpayer. Why? Because they said we needed it in the pandemic. The pandemic is over. And that's why the Democrats, when they passed the bill, put in a provision that says at the end of this year, those extra subsidies are going to end. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez says no. Until you agree to let them continue to let anybody at any income level get subsidies, we're going to shut government down. That's their third demand. And that is part of the $1.5 trillion. And finally, of course, the Congresswoman is saying we want you to give $500 billion, not $500,000, not $500 million, $500 billion. We want you to give $500 billion to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting because we like what they say. Well, we just eliminated money for all forms of media in the Affordable Care Act. Now, those are the demands. Those are the demands. I'll just mention, one more. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez got very, very upset, as did the socialist wing of her party, when the president sent over what's called a rescission package. Basically, President Trump just said, we want you to take some stuff out of the budget that we think is wasteful. And we did. And that upset the Congresswoman. She's entitled to be upset if she wants to. But that really upset the socialist wing of the party. And so we took out, and here's what they want us to put back in. We found that under President Biden, they were spending $3 million for circumcisions and vasectomies in Zambia. We took that out. The Congresswoman says, we're going to shut down government until you put that back in. We found $500,000 of American taxpayer money for electric buses in Rwanda. We found $3.6 million for pastry cooking classes and dance focus groups for male prostitutes in Haiti. I kid you not. I'm not making this up. It was in the budget under President Biden. We took it out. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez in the socialist wing, the loon wing of the Democratic Party, says we're going to shut down government until you put it back in. I'll just read you a few more that we took out. They are demanding we put back in. $6 million for media organizations for the Palestinians. $833,000 for transgender people in Nepal. $300,000 for a pride parade in Lesotho. $882,000 for social media and mentorship in Serbia. $4.2 million. We took it out. The Congresswoman and the socialist wing of their party says we've got to put that back in for the open government. $4.2 million for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex people in the Western Balkans and Uganda. I could spend the rest of the afternoon here. We took all that out. It upset Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. It upset the socialist wing of her party. And now that wing of her party and the Congresswoman are threatening all other Democrats and saying, you've got to shut that government down until we get what we want. And part of what they want is to add this kind of stuff back into the bill. And that's what this fight is all about. We're in the process of negotiating a budget with our Democratic friends. We ran out of time. The cutoff was midnight Tuesday night. That's when the clock struck midnight and the budget ran out. What we had asked for and what we're still asking for is let's continue to negotiate, we meaning the Republicans and the Democrats, for 6 more weeks and try to agree on a budget. That's all we're asking. We're not asking for any additional appropriations, any conditions, any stipulations. All we're asking for is what we call a clean CR. All we're asking for is just further negotiate. And Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, who has done a stellar job in rising to the leadership of her party as a member of the socialist wing. They're about to elect a socialist mayor of New York. I think Mr. Mamdani's going to win. They have said to our request, let's just continue the status quo for 6 more weeks. They said, we'll give you 6 more weeks if you will give us $1.5 trillion. That's what they're demanding. And that's why we're shut down. Now, let me say it again, Mr. President. I don't hate anybody. This is America. I sure don't hate the Congresswoman. She is entitled to her opinion, but I'm entitled to mine. And she can criticize my policy positions, but I'm entitled to criticize hers. And I'm here to tell you, Mr. President, in front of God and country, based on her policy positions that she's demanding, based on her policy positions that she is demanding that I just outlined, $1.5 trillion of pure, unadulterated spending porn. Based on that demand, based on her policy positions, the American people are looking at her and saying, this person has single-handedly put an end to dumb blonde jokes. Because that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Based on her policy positions, $1.5 trillion of this kind of spending porn, the American people are looking at the Congresswoman and saying, with respect, she must be bilingual. She must speak English and stupid. And that's why we're not agreeing to it. Now, I know every one of my Democratic colleagues, and I know more than half of them know better. They know what we're asking for is reasonable. I'm just asking them to meet us halfway. We're not asking for any additional provisions. They shouldn't ask for any additional provisions. And let us just open back up and continue to negotiate for 6 weeks. Don't be scared of the Congresswoman. Don't be scared of the socialist wing of your party. This is just a hypothetical.
In general, hypothetically, Senator, maybe they didn't recognize any of the names of the 8 sitting United States senators.
Hypothetically.
That was a joke.
Or maybe they should have gone to Amazon and buy some testicles online. Instead of just saying, sure, I'll just show you the phone records of a sitting United States senator on the basis of an administrative subpoena. Let's suppose that I'm appointed special counsel at the Department of Justice. And I go to the telecommunication companies, the phone companies. Let's single out AT&T, and I say, look, I know you're busy, but I want to see a copy of the phone records of a sitting United States senator. They're not going to just give them to me, are they?
No, Senator, of course not.
In fact, they're probably going to ask me what planet I just parachuted in from, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
They're going to tell me to come back with a subpoena, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. What do I have to show in that subpoena to get those phone records of a sitting? Did I mention it was a sitting United States senator? I can't remember. What do I have to show to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator?
Yes, Senator, there were actually 8 sitting United States senators,
I heard that.
and you would have to have cause.
I'm sorry, what do I have to show?
You would have to have cause to get the subpoena.
Good cause or probable cause?
Probable cause.
Okay. Probable cause, or if it's a subpoena deuces take 'em, good cause, to show what?
You would need good cause for a subpoena ducis tecum, and what you would have to show is that you believed a crime had been committed, or there was a possibility of a crime, or that could lead to other crimes. We frequently, in criminal enterprises, subpoena cell phones.
By the sitting United States senator?
Senator, they would have to have believed you were part of a criminal conspiracy, is my understanding.
Would a judge have to sign off on it? On the subpoena?
Yes, Senator. Well, for a subpoena ducis tecum, Jack Smith probably took it straight to the judge.
Now, the phone companies particularly their general counsel, if they're worried about civil liability, even with a subpoena, to get the phone records of a sitting United States Senator. Did I mention it was a sitting United States Senator?
Yes, Senator.
The general counsel for that phone company, let's say AT&T, they have the right to seek to quash that subpoena, don't they?
Phone companies frequently do that.
Yeah. And a smart general counsel for that phone company is going to call the sitting United States Senator and say, would you like to weigh in on this? Would you like me to quash the subpoena? We're talking about invading someone's privacy here by a sitting United States Senator. Could the general counsel for the phone company do that?
Well, Senator, if they believe that a crime could have been committed, they could not tip off the person who committed the crime. Again, I can't comment on details of this particular case.
I'm just asking you theoretically.
I've never seen you commit a crime, Senator Kennedy.
But let's suppose, okay, they didn't want to tip off the sitting United States Senator. But the phone company and the general counsel for the phone company, or companies, if there were more than one involved, could say, you know, this is serious as an aneurysm. This is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. This is a sitting United States Senator. So general counsel would likely advise the CEO, well, you need to file a motion to quash. The telephone companies could have contested those subpoenas, could they not?
Hypothetically, yes. I can't talk about the facts of this particular case.
We're talking hypothetical.
Senator, subpoenas are issued all the time through phone companies working with the general counsel.
But they can file a motion to quash.
They could, yes.
Yeah.
In any case.
And if they should have filed a motion to quash, and a reasonable person would have filed a motion to quash, because this is a sitting United States Senator, and they didn't file a motion to quash, they would incur civil liability, wouldn't they?
Senator, typically phone companies follow a subpoena from a United States attorney.
I know they do, but they don't have to.
They could challenge it, Senator.
Yeah. And if they don't challenge it, they better have a damn good reason. Right? Right?
Senator, I can't talk about the facts of this particular
This is just
case.
a hypothetical.
In general, hypothetically, Senator, maybe they didn't recognize any of the names of the 8 sitting United States senators.
Hypothetically.
That was a joke.
Or maybe they should have gone to Amazon and buy some testicles online. Instead of just saying, sure, I'll just show you the phone records of a sitting United States Senator on the basis of an administrative subpoena. Now, do you have copies of the subpoena applications for
Yes,
these
Senator,
8?
Senator, I can't discuss anything regarding this
You can't
case
even
with
tell me
you.
if you have copies?
I can't discuss any of this.
All right,
with
when are
I'm
you
sorry.
going to, General, when are you going to be able to discuss it?
I can't discuss whether there is or is not a pending investigation,
I understand,
Senator. This
but
was
let's
just
assume
brought to light
if
by
there is a
Director
pending
Patel.
investigation, I don't want this to get swept under the rug, okay? Because I think you're going to get pushed back from all quarters. I think the telecommunication companies are going to be all over you like a bad rash because they've got liability here for just turning over these records when they knew what was going on. I think some FBI agents may have some liability here. I think a special counsel might have some liability here. If I were your special counsel and you had appointed me and I wanted to get the records of a sitting United States Senator, is that something you would expect me to tell you as Attorney General of the United States?
They better have.
Yeah.
And
Do we know in this instance of the 8 sitting United States senators if they told Attorney General Garland?
Senator, I just learned about this very recently, as did Director Patel, and we cannot discuss the details. I don't know many of the details.
Well, maybe we ought to get Attorney General Garland here. Do you know if the special counsel told FBI Director Wray? Is that something? Let me put it another way. If I were your special counsel and you were the director of the FBI, and I'm trying to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator, did I mention it was a sitting United States senator? Is that something that you would expect me to tell you as director of the FBI?
In general, I would believe the FBI would help execute the subpoenas.
Yeah.
To the businesses.
Okay, I want to switch to another subject in the 12 minutes that I have left, since everybody else got to go over. I've got to ask you about this, General. Secretary Howard Lutnick on October 1 gave an interview to the New York Post about Mr. Epstein. And he described Mr. Epstein as, quote, the greatest blackmailer ever, close quote. Have you reviewed that transcript of that interview?
I have not reviewed the transcript, but I saw the clip of it.
Okay. It appears that Secretary Lutnick was Mr. Epstein's next door neighbor. In fact, their townhomes shared a wall. And the reporter that was talking to Mr. Lutnick, she asked how other prominent men could have been associated with Epstein when Mr. Lutnick could immediately sense that he was a, quote, pervert. And then Secretary Lutnick said, or rather the reporter said, did they see it and ignore it? Do you remember that from the interview?
I do.
And Commerce Secretary Lutnick said, no, they participated. And then Commerce Secretary Lutnick goes on to say, quote, that's what his MO was. You know, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was a video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever, blackmailed people. That's how he had money, end quote. Is that true?
Senator, as our July memo said, we did not uncover evidence. This case has gone through 3 administrations, as well as former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta.
I know that, Pam, but have you interviewed Secretary Lutnick?
No, Senator.
Do you plan to?
If he wants to talk to the FBI or the FBI wants to talk to him, that is more than on.
Don't you think you ought to talk to him after this interview?
Senator, if Howard Lutnick wants to speak to the FBI and if Director Patel wants to speak to Howard Lutnick, absolutely.
Okay. Maybe we ought to get Mr. Lutnick in here too, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk just for a few minutes, Mr. President, about digital assets. Some people refer to them as crypto or cryptocurrency. The Senate Banking Committee is in the process, as we should be, of considering market structure legislation for digital assets, for Bitcoin, for crypto. And it's important because there's an enormous amount of confusion out there. I remember when blockchain technology started, many of us do. Today, 1 in 5 Americans own cryptocurrency. Its growth has been nothing short of breathtaking. But as oftentimes happens when you have an innovation, it creates enormous confusion on the way that the subject of that innovation integrates with the federal government. And that's the case here. Those who are in the cryptocurrency business and in the blockchain technology business don't know who to talk to in the federal government. The Securities and Exchange Commission has announced under President Biden that it has jurisdiction over digital assets, and so did the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC. And there's been a lot of litigation, and there have been a lot of court cases, and it's been enormously confusing. And those in the crypto business understandably have the reaction, look, we don't mind being regulated, we have nothing to hide, but we'd like to know who to talk to. Is it the CFTC? Is it the SEC? What do we do? And that's why we need legislation. That's why we need market structure legislation, not because government needs to stick its nose in everything, but because there has to be some certainty here. Clearly, there's a turf war between the CFTC and the SEC, and it's Congress's role to delineate who has jurisdiction over what. Now, we did pass one piece of what you might call crypto legislation. We passed the Genius Act, as you know, Mr. President. That was an important piece of legislation, but it really was just a baby step. It regulates stable coins, which is only one part of the digital assets business. I'm certainly not denigrating the effort. I voted for the bill. I sit on the banking committee. The Congress passed the bill. It's a good bill. It was necessary. I congratulate everybody who worked so hard on it. But it's only a small portion of the digital assets market. Now we need to turn to the rest. And the House has already acted. The House has passed a bill called the Clarity Act, which does just what I've been talking about, providing some market structure legislation for the crypto industry, the digital assets industry. But the Senate, this is above my pay grade, but the Senate has not decided not to take up the Clarity Act. I don't know that it's been decided definitively, because obviously if enough senators want to, we can take up anything we want to take up. But the thinking seems to be that the Senate needs to start over and draft our own digital assets market structure bill that complements the Clarity Act, which is already passed by the House. The Banking Committee, chaired by our very able Chairman Tim Scott, is going to be taking up this legislation soon. It's got to be written first. It's still being written. We need to hold hearings. This is a complicated piece of legislation. I've spent a lot of time on it, and it's one of the most complicated pieces of legislation I've ever seen. This is just one person's opinion. I'm as a member of banking, I think it's going to take at least 2 hearings for us to be able to understand the pros and the cons of this legislation and understand the legislation itself. We have to be sure in this legislation, given that 1 in 5 Americans own cryptocurrency, we have to make sure in this legislation, Mr. President, that we're striking the right balance in jurisdiction between the CFTC and the SEC. We have to make sure in this legislation that we're coordinating closely with another Senate committee, the Senate Agriculture Committee, because it has jurisdiction of the CFTC and will play just as important, if not a more important role in this legislation as the Banking Committee. We're going to have to address in this legislation some concerns of the banking community. The banking community, after we passed the Genius Act, remember the Genius Act was just about stable coins. The banking committee is arguing the banking community, our banks, are arguing very persuasively that there were some mistakes made in the Genius Act, which, as I just said, regulates stable coins. Frankly, I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's what we need a hearing for, but I think the banking community needs to be heard on this issue. If we did make some mistakes, I'm sorry, Mr. President. If we did make some mistakes in the Genius Act with respect to American banks, I want us to correct it. I'm not saying we did or we didn't. I've heard both sides of the argument. But my point is that we're going to have to take up that issue as well in the hearing, because the banking community would like us to amend the larger digital asset market structure legislation to accommodate their concerns about the mistakes, if any, that we made in the Genius Act. We're going to have to spend a lot of time in these hearings and in drafting the legislation, making sure that we are addressing things like tokenized securities. This complicated stuff. It's a way, basically, to trade a stock using blockchain technology without owning the stock. We've got to make sure we get that right. An issue will be raised, I'm sure, about deposit insurance. Cryptocurrency is, it's currency in the eyes of many people. And I can see the day when the American people will ask us to address the issue. Should deposit insurance cover cryptocurrency and digital assets? I'm not suggesting to you that it should. I'm not suggesting to you, Mr. President, that it shouldn't. I'm suggesting to you that likely would be a topic we'd want to consider in one of these hearings that we need to have about this topic. I also think it would be appropriate in a hearing on this topic before we draft or vote on the legislation to talk about the Clarity Act. That's the digital market structure legislation that I just referred to that was passed by the House. No one's suggesting this, but I certainly would disagree if they suggested that we just ignore that legislation. A lot of work went into it. I spent a lot of time reading it, and I'm going to have to spend more time reading it. It's very interesting, but there's some good work there. And I want to be able to compare the Clarity Act passed by the House with the Senate's market structure legislation. So perhaps we can pick the best of each. And that would be an appropriate topic of a hearing as well. These issues I'm addressing are illustrative. They're not exhaustive. But we also need to address the issue of what, if any, fiduciary responsibility those who participate in the digital assets markets have. I'm talking about commodity brokers. I'm talking digital commodity brokers. I'm talking about digital commodity dealers. Should they have a fiduciary obligation to their customers, to their clients? I'm talking about the digital commodity exchanges. What should their duty to their clients be? Should it be a fiduciary obligation? Should it be something less? These are weighty issues. These are important issues. These are not issues that you raise and solve over a weekend. But I wanted to start talking about this bill, Mr. President, because it's one of the most important pieces of legislation that this body will consider. It may not be the sexiest, and may not be the most interesting to some, but it's when 1 in 5 Americans own cryptocurrency, it's certainly important. So I'll probably be talking about this issue several more times on this floor, but as the Senate moves forward with our digital assets market structure legislation, I hope we'll move it quickly, but I hope we'll move deliberately. I hope we'll take the time to hold the hearings, and again, I think it's going to take more than one hearing to address these weighty topics, and then an additional time once we get a bill to mark it up, as we say, to amend it and make sure that we do the job for the American people. And with that, Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum. Secretary Bergen loves this thing. He loves this idea like the devil loves sin. And he has the right to his opinion. But here's my advice. Life is hard. Life is hard. But it's a lot harder when you're stupid. I want to talk today, Mr. President, about the owls. There are 19 species or kinds of owls in the United States. Did you know that? 19. I want to talk about two of them. The spotted owl and the barred owl. That's barred, B-A-R-R-E-D. Both of them are God's creatures. I also want to talk today, Mr. President, and you'll understand what I mean in a moment, about the federal government's proclivity, repeated proclivity, to do the dumbest thing possible that won't work. Now, the federal government, which can't even deliver the mail when it has the address right there on the front, and more specifically, the Department of Interior has promulgated a rule. And this rule says that unless Congress stops them, they're going to hire hunters right here to kill 453,000 barred owls. There are only 4 million in the United States, but the Department of Interior wants to kill 453,000 mama barred owls, daddy barred owls, and baby barred owls, because the Department of Interior says that the barred owl is a better hunter than the spotted owl. The Department of Interior is not saying the barred owl is eating the spotted owl. The Department of Interior isn't saying that the barred owl is hurting the spotted owl. The Department of Interior says it wants to kill over 10% of the barred owl population because the barred owl is a better hunter than the spotted owl, and they want to tip the scales of nature in favor of the spotted owl, even though the spotted owl is not on the endangered species list. My resolution, which will be voted on tomorrow, will stop this nonsense. First, I want to talk a little bit more about the barred owl, and in doing so, I'll talk a little bit about its cousin, the spotted owl. As I said, they're both God's creatures. This is a barred owl. It's beautiful. If you've ever seen a barred owl, it has very, very soulful eyes. Their feathers are incredibly soft. It's called a barred, B-A-R-R-E-D, because of the bars that run across here, as opposed to a spotted owl. The barred owl, 10% of which our brainiacs at the Department of Interior want to kill, has been around for 11,000 years. Sometimes the barred owl is called a hoot owl. That may be the term you know it by best. The barred owl is about 2 feet long. It's got incredible eyes. Man, it can see. It's like Superman or Superwoman. It's got incredible eyes and incredible hearing. The barred owl, like the spotted owl, it's nocturnal. They come out at night. They hide during the day, and they come out at night. And the barred owl is a great hunter, great hunter. The barred owl eats mice. The barred owl eats squirrels. The barred owl eats snakes. The barred owl eats lizards. The barred owl eats spiders. Barred owl even eats bats. The barred owl lives, as does the spotted owl for that matter, in old growth forests. In fact, I have a pair of barred owls that live in the forest behind my house. They're great. They always come in pairs, about which I'll talk in a second. In fact, you can attract barred owls, many people do, by building what's called a nest box. And you can have barred owls come and live if you live near a forest. If you want to know how, if you're not handy like me and you want to know how to build a nest box, just go to YouTube. Barred owls marry for life. They mate for life. And when a male barred owl is courting a female barred owl, I've seen videos, it's really cool. The male barred owl courts a female by bowing. The male barred owl bows, and it opens its wings up a little bit. Doesn't want to be intimidating to the female, not full blast, but it opens its legs up a little bit. And the barred owl wobbles its head back and forth, side to side. And if the female is impressed, the female says, "I do." And they stay married the rest of their lives together. That's why you see them in pairs. They have babies once a year, generally 2 to 5 babies. I can't go there. These are two of the babies that the Department of Interior wants to kill. They're going to pay the same price, by the way, to the hunter to kill the babies as they are to kill the mama. They don't care. They just want to kill them all. When the babies are little bitty when they're born, they're not covered in feathers. Little babies are covered in soft white down. They don't start getting feathers until about 2 weeks. And the mama barred owl stays with the babies for the first few weeks. Sometimes the babies, like senators, fall out of the nest as they start exploring around, and the mama or the daddy barred owl, unless the daddy's out hunting for food, has to get them back into the nest. The babies learn to fly after about 10 weeks. Now, what does this have to do with the spotted owl, which is also one of God's creatures? The barred owl is native. It's originally from the eastern United States and southeastern Canada. It's existed there 11,000 years. But over the past 100 years, 100 years is just the blink of an eye in time. Over the past 100 years, the Northeast has gotten more and more crowded. And the old growth forests that the barred owl lives in have been cut down and subdivisions built. So the barred owl, as happens all the time in nature, has started moving west, and it's moving west, and it's moving west. And now the barred owl is entering Washington State, Oregon, Northern California, and British Columbia in Canada. Well, that's where the spotted owl lives. The spotted owl also lives in old growth forest, but not exactly in the old growth forest in the west is the same place as the barred owl is. The spotted owl prefers an old growth forest at a higher elevation. The barred owl is a better hunter. It's slightly bigger than the spotted owl. The barred owl is a better hunter than the spotted owl. Now, let me say it again, because there's been a lot of confusion about this. The barred owl doesn't hunt the spotted owl. In fact, many times a barred owl and a spotted owl will get married. I know they're cousins, but that doesn't matter. They're distant cousins, and sometimes they get married, and they interbreed. So this isn't a question of one animal killing another. The Department of Interior is mad at the barred owl because the barred owl's a better hunter. The barred owl is just a better hunter. That's just the way it is. You know, just like the Senate president is better looking than me, I accept that. That's the way God made us. God just made the barred owl a better hunter. And the Department of Interior is all up in arms. They say this is threatening the spotted owl. Now, the spotted owl isn't on the endangered species list, but they say this isn't fair. The barred owl is a better hunter than the spotted owl, and that's causing the spotted owl's population to decrease. So the Department of Interior, in its infinite wisdom, has come up with DEI for owls. They've come up with quotas for owls. The barred owl, because nature, God, whatever you believe in, made them better hunters, now has to give up its rights, has to give up its life, because the spotted owl is not as good of a hunter. Now, as I mentioned, the spotted owl and the barred owl don't always live in the same place. Out west, the spotted owl prefers higher elevations than the barred owl, but they do, it's undeniable, they compete for food and they both live in old growth forests. Let me tell you something. The Department of Interior doesn't like to admit this, Mr. President. The spotted owl population was declining even before the barred owl decided to move. You know why? It had nothing to do with food. It had nothing to do with the barred owl. It had to do with the same thing happening on the West Coast that has happened on the East Coast. Many of the old growth forests have been cut down to make way for more people. And you might have noticed we've had a few forest fires. And they have been causing the population of the spotted owl to be reduced. Not to the point of endangered. The Interior Department just says they're threatened. That's the problem with the spotted owl. It's not the barred owl. Now, this regulation that I'm trying to overturn was promulgated under President Biden's Department of Interior. Okay? But the Department of Interior, I want to make this clear, under President Trump, has embraced this rule. They think this is the greatest rule, this is the greatest idea they've ever heard of. They think it tastes like pumpkin pie to them. In fact, I got a call from Secretary Burgum, who I love and respect. He was mad as a mama wasp. Pull down that regulation. He accused me of slandering the Trump administration. I'm not slandering the Trump administration. This was a President Biden regulation. Now, I was polite with the secretary, but I told him he was confused. He needed to call somebody. He had the wrong person on line. The secretary needed to call somebody who cared what he thought. Because I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong. I think he and the other members of the administrative state of the Department of Interior decided to play God. And they're wrong for at least 5 reasons. Number one, their plan, their brainiac plan, which looks like it was designed by a heroin addict with a socket wrench, won't work. It won't work. Now, let me tell you what they're going to do. They want to hire hunters. They want to hire Elmer here to go out at night with a flashlight and shoot the barred owls. Now, this is night, okay? The barred owl lives about 40 feet up off the ground in a tree. You know what else lives about 40 feet up off the ground in the tree? The spotted owl. You think that these cowboys who are going disco because they have a federal contract are going to be able to always tell the difference between a barred owl and a spotted owl? They're going to shoot them both and let God sort them out because they're being paid. Look, I'm a duck hunter. And a lot of times when I hunt ducks, I'm not a big hunter, but I like to duck hunt and dove hunt. I eat what I kill. But a lot of times when I'm duck hunting, there are different points for different species of duck. I can't tell which duck is which. I've passed up shots before because I thought it might be a mallard when I can't kill any more mallard. You think these cowboys that they're going to hire from the private sector, going out there with their little flashlights, old Elmer here, with his little red hat, in the middle of the night with a flashlight, are going to tell the difference or care the difference between a barred owl and a spotted owl? No. They're going to shoot them both. Number two, the other reason it won't work is the spotted owls are not stupid. Once you start shooting at them, they're going to move up into Canada. The Canadians aren't dumb enough to do something like this. They're going to move up into Canada. And they're going to wait until the shooting stops. And then they're going to come back down. So what have we accomplished? Have we done anything for the spotted owl? No. Number three, I've been through this reg stem to stern. I can't find where this regulation prohibits Elmer Fudd from going out there and using lead shot. Now, when we hunt ducks, you can't use lead shot, you use steel shot. You know why? Because a lot of times other birds and other animals will eat the lead shot and they die from it. So these cowboys are going to go out, if they're not prohibited from using lead shot, yeah, they're going to kill some barred owls and spotted owls. They're going to end up killing eagles and hawks and other wildlife using their lead shot. The second reason this won't work, let me say it again. The barred owls aren't the problem. The problem is that we're losing old growth forest in the West, which is the habitat of the spotted owl. And it's naturally occurring as more people move to Washington and Northern Carolina and Oregon, and we have wildfires that have burned our forests. Don't go pick on the barred owl. You can kill every barred owl there is, and it's not going to help the spotted owl if you don't maintain the appropriate habitat. Number three, this is going to be incredibly expensive. This comes under the theme of let's do the dumbest thing possible that won't work. Our Department of Interior has already issued one contract. I don't know how they got the authority to do it, but back in 2004, they issued a contract to a private vendor, Elmer here, to go kill 1,500 barred owls. I guess they wanted to test it out. You know what they paid? $3,000 a bird. $3,000 for a mama barred owl, $3,000 for a daddy barred owl, and $3,000 for a baby barred owl. Give me a break. And now they're going to go out and kill 453,000? Over $1 billion. Over $1 billion. It's not their money, but it's taxpayer money on a plan that won't even work. Here's what one person from the Department of Interior said. In a rare moment of candor, he might have gotten fired, but he's a wildlife and fisheries agent. He told the press, I'm going to quote, he said, I think all we can really do is try our best to provide a habitat for spotted owls, and in the long run, we're just going to have to let the two species work it out. Final reason this is a bad reg, and then I'm going to wrap this up. I know the bureaucrats at the Department of Interior. I realize this. They're smarter and they're more virtuous than you and I are. I get that. But who appointed them God? Who appointed them God? Barred owls are expanding their habitat because the forests in the east have been cut down. That's called adaptive range expansion. And you know what? Whether you believe in God or nature or whatever, that happens every single day in our ecosystem. It's a naturally occurring ecological phenomenon. It's a core behavioral characteristic of mammals. All the barred owls are doing, they're not hurting anybody, they're just doing what nature teaches them to do. We're going to change nature. We're going to control our environment to this extent. We're going to pass DEI for owls. We're going to pass quotas for owls. Spotted owls good, barred owls bad. But the barred owls won't lose their constitutional rights. They'll kill them. They're going to kill 453 of them, dead as Jimmy Hoffa. Give me a break. I cannot think. This attempt, this is foolish, this is reckless, this is expensive, it's unsupported by evidence, it's unnecessary, and it won't work. And I cannot think of a better example of the arrogance, the hubris of the federal administrative state. This ranks right up there. If we let them go through with this will rank right up there with those $10,000 Department of Defense toilet seats. Except part of God's creation will already be dead. Ecosystems are like markets. They regulate themselves. Trying to change nature is like trying to have a federal government direct a free enterprise system. It won't work. It never has, and it never will. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. I don't. I'm not, well, I guess I am calling somebody over a FUD. I don't know who they're going to hire, but I know they hired a bunch of Elmers and gave them $3,000 a bird, and it didn't work. But this to me is just bone deep, down to the marrow stupid. I have rocks in my driveway that are smarter than this. I do. And here's my advice to my friends of the Department of Interior. And I'm full disclosure, this thing's supported by President Biden's people, and it is supported by President Trump's people. Secretary Bergen loves this thing. He loves this idea like the devil loves sin. And he has the right to his opinion. But here's my advice. Life is hard. Life is hard. But it's a lot harder when you're stupid. Don't do it. Pass my resolution. And let's stop this. Look, I trust everybody. I believe in the adage, trust in God, but tie up your camel.
Senator, we are fully committed to cleaning up the agency.
Yeah, well, you got 30 days,
Yep.
or whatever I just said. I'll stick to whatever I just said to give me a report about what's happened to these people.
We will do so.
And otherwise, you can forget about my vote. Mr. Hill, did you read the 234-page Cleary-Gottlieb report about the sexual harassment and the bullying and the touching and the sleaze and the racial discrimination at the FDIC under President Biden?
I did, Senator.
I'm going to clean up the language here because we've got kids here. Did you read the part of the report where one young female employee said that her supervisor looked her in the eye and described her as being quote, like a grizzly bear with breasts, but he didn't use the term breast. Did you read that?
I did, yes.
Did you read the part where one FDIC supervisor asked a female, young female subordinate, quote, does your husband blank you?
I did, Senator.
You read that?
Yes.
Did you read the part of the report where one young female employee said her supervisor sent her a text saying, quote, get naked, blank?
Yes, Senator.
Did you read the part of the report where one female employee said that her supervisor at the FDIC, been there for years, sent her a picture of his private parts?
Yes, Senator.
Now look, I could go on all day. And you know what I've heard back? I've talked about this for a long time. You know what I've heard back from the FDIC? Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. I haven't heard from you. Last time I checked, 97 employees at your agency, if you're confirmed, reported repeated instances of sexual assault, sexual advances, and unwanted touching. 91 other employees reported repeated incidents of sex discrimination. 187 employees reported repeated incidents of bullying and threats. 191 employees reported repeated incidents of racial discrimination. Did you read the part of the report, Mr. Hill, where an Hispanic employee said that his supervisor asked him to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to, quote, prove that he was an American? Did you read that?
I did, Senator.
Did it make you proud?
It did not.
You've been there since January, right?
That's correct.
I heard you talk about transparency and accountability. Those are pretty words. I want a report within 30 days about what's been done. I want to know who's been fired. I want to know who's been prosecuted. I want to know who's been moved around with so-called demotion, taking care of their brother-in-law, and got a bonus.
We can certainly provide that for you.
Well, you better, because I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure I'm going to vote for you. I've had enough of this. I have had enough of this. And if your name came up in front of me right now, I wouldn't vote for you.
Senator,
It's got nothing to do with your policy chops, but I have had enough.
Yep.
I have had enough. This is not an isolated incident. And I've talked about this repeatedly, and I've heard nothing from you, Mr. Hill, and I've had nothing from your agency. And you know what I assume? Look, I trust everybody. I believe in the adage, trust in God, but tie up your camel.
Senator, we are fully committed to cleaning up the agency.
Yeah, well, you got 30 days.
Yep.
Or whatever I just said. I'll stick with whatever I just said to give me a report about what's happened to these people.
We will do so.
And otherwise, you can forget about my vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.